Hello students, today we will discuss about negative capability. Negative capability is a quality which enables the poet to merge his identity completely with the contemplated object. Keats himself defines it as, quote, one who has negative capability is capable of being in uncertainties, mysteries, doubts without any irritable reaching after fact and reason, unquote. For Keats, the necessary precondition of poetry is submission to things as they are without trying to intellectualize them. And he finds this quality in Shakespeare. The concept implies self-annihilation or disinterestedness and requires a sympathetic identification of the poet with some object dearer to him than himself. Keats writes in a letter to Mr. Woodhouse, as to the poetic character itself, it has no self, has no character. A poet is the most unpoetical of anything in existence because he has no identity. He is continually in and filling some other body. Keats believes that negative capability can be attained through submission to the chaos of experience. The barrier between reality and perceiving mind is the self, the intellectual faculty which must be effaced. Keats visualizes the pain and misery of the world in a vivid word picture as the weariness, the fever and the fret, here where men sit and hear each other groan. The lines are illustrative of Keats' first-hand knowledge of the sufferings in this sordid world. Negative capability is in fact a theory of sympathetic identification through participation with the qualities and character of the object. As Keats enjoys the beauty of autumn as season of mists and mellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of the maturing sun. With the power of negative capability, Keats simply presents the paradoxes of the world without resolving them logically. This is exactly what Keats does in his odes, as critics like Graham Huff also comment. They, means Keats' odes, come to no conclusion, make no synthesis. They are in fact a supreme example of negative capability. Holloway appreciates how the odes are interlinked with the poet's conception of negative capability, saying, odes are not products of what Keats himself called negative capability, but taken together are a unique, full account of what it is like and how it develops. The Ode on a Grecian Urn embodies the most serene and moving expression of Keats' negative capability. A reflection of his inner conflict is found in Ode to a Nightingale, where the tone is completely different from the serenity and lofty detachment of Grecian Urn. From the very first word, the emphasis is on Keats himself and the life which presses so inexorably upon him. The poet writes in the beginning, my heart aches and a drowsy numbness pains my sense as though of hemlock I had drunk. Keats wishes to leave the world unseen, taking refuge in wine, flying on the viewless wings of poesy. he denies himself the complete satisfaction of sensuous delights which he vividly evokes simultaneously. Throughout the poem, one realizes the antinomies of conflicts. Finally, in a burst of imaginative vision, he frees himself and achieves an Olympian purview. Though thou wast not born for death, immortal bird, as Keats says, yet what follows is notable. Keats achieves in his odes negative capability, a sort of imaginative sympathy, and a perfect mode of self-effacement with the subject. This capability makes him able to treat both good and evil, joy and sorrow on the same pedestal. He can create both emotions simultaneously. As we have earlier discussed, critics like Graham Huff find Keatsian odes as supreme examples of negative capability. Keats here is capable of bearing uncertainties, mysteries, doubts, without any irritation after fact and fiction. Ode to Autumn is one of the finest examples in Keats in English literature of that repose, calm and contentment which results from negative capability. The central idea of most of his odes is the contrast between permanence of art and transitoriness of human joy, arising from mere sensuous beauty, between the ideal and the real. Keats preaches the immortal art which confers eternity on human passions. The poet tries again and again to escape from the sordidness of present life, but every time he realizes the reality and comes back. Almost all aspects of Keatsian art, including his love for fine phrases, habit of loading every rift of his subject with ore and power of word painting, use of suggestions, sensuous epithets, and his fine sense of music and melody, find a rich and full expression in his odes. Keats' poetic mastery at this moment can be compared with nothing in English literature save Shakespeare's in his maturity. In conclusion, Keats had a wonderful power of self-effacement and identification with the object, as we have earlier discussed. For critics like Fred, he has to a remarkable degree that same power of self-absorption, that wonderful sympathy and identification with all things, that negative capability which Shakespeare exemplified so abundantly. Fred applies Keats' comment on Shakespeare to Keats himself. To quote, "His life was an allegory and his works are the comments on it. It is indeed the quality of negative capability which makes Keats and his poetry all the more memorable and, no doubt, everlasting for generations and to enjoy for generations."